So what you do is just get a knife and you cut the eye off of the frog, and you get some Scotch tape and you just tape it onto a leaf, and that's what it looks like. But you have to cut it off of the frog. That's the key part.
Right, right.
Otherwise, the rest of the frog will maybe confuse the symptoms or what it looks like.
Right, right. Welcome to the Undergrowth. This is where we speak to celebrated scientists and eminent educators about plants and pests. Let us embrace knowledge together on this expedition into mysterious realms. I'm Sebastian Eugene Bartholomew, and this is the Undergrowth. Today on the program I have the distinct pleasure to welcome Dr. Daren Mueller, an extension plant pathologist and professor at the Royal Academy of Iowa State University. Dr. Mueller is part of a department at the Royal Academy known as the PPEM department, which, as everybody knows, stands for Psycho People Eviscerating Mice. Is that not so, Dr. Mueller?
This week, that's what it's called.
But not always?
Not always. No, we try to change it up, keep it fresh.
So there's the possibility that next week I may be wrong?
No, you'll be right again.
Right.
With just different words.
I'm so thankful that I'm interviewing you today.
Yeah, I'm here to give you answers.
Teachable moments.
Yeah.
Dr. Mueller, will you tell us the sordid story that you have taken from plucky, small-town Wisconsin boy to famous plant pathologist who studies soybean diseases with animal names?
Yeah, I guess I can. The short version is, grew up on a small farm, wanted to be a vet or a doctor, didn't want to study, so chose not to go those paths because apparently you have to study. And then I started working for a seed company, and that seed company, they had sick plants just like animals or humans, and then it all just sort of happened. And so I started studying plant pathology for my master's and my PhD and didn't turn back. And so it's been a fun ride. And then, gosh, I am old enough now. I think I've been here at Iowa State for almost 20 years, and then been studying field crop diseases for over 20 years. It's a part of my time and my graduate degree too. So,
indeed.
Yeah.
That sounds like an epic adventure.
There's a lot more details. I left them out. We would be here for weeks.
What is Frogeye leaf spot of soybean, and what does it want from humans?
What it does, I mean, what it wants from humans is clearly to eliminate humans.
Right.
Right.
They
And so,
always do.
like, if you ever end up at a council of Cercospora fungi, and where all of the leaders come together, like this is usually the beginning of, and like, you know, the main plot of their conversations is eliminating humans.
Right, for our viewers' sake, Cercospora, is that the fungus that causes
that'd be the fungus.
disease, Frogeye?
Yeah, yeah, sorry, yeah, I thought that was common knowledge, but I don't know who the viewers are.
It is for folks of our intelligence level,
Right.
but...
Anyway, so like now we're back to the council, like the Cercospora meeting. I mean, human elimination would be good, but I would think, like, the other thing is that sometimes they just want to eat. Like, you just sort of think of, you know, you're walking into a Mongolian grill buffet and you have this like huge, all these options that are there, and you know, like, you'll spend a lot of time there eating. Right. You know, just fungi are the same way. Like they're just looking for a good bite.
So, to summarize, Frogeye leaf spot just wants to eat soybeans.
I would say that's a simple answer, yeah.
When I walk out of a buffet, I might find myself a little more glorious here. And a bit full, like I don't want to eat anything for a while. Does Frogeye leaf spot ever feel full after dining on a field full of delicious soybeans?
Well, what they do is when they get really full, they actually just sprout out new spores. I think that's the scientific term. And those spores will go on, and then they'll continue to eat. And so it's just sort of like, you know, their children are eating then. And so it's a nice way to sort of mow through a field pretty quickly.
Right, right. So it's kind of like a puff of unseen spores released into the wind.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, right. So what happens to me after I also eat a buffet?
We don't want to know. We have to cut that out of the video. Right, yeah.
How does one identify Frogeye leaf spot?
Do you have to ask that?
I do indeed.
Well, you know what a frog looks like.
I do know what a frog looks like.
And you've looked at its eyes before.
I have seen them once or
So
twice.
what you do is just get a knife and you cut the eye off of the frog, and you get some Scotch tape and you just tape it onto a leaf, and that's what it looks like.
Oh my.
But you have to cut it off of the frog. That's the key part.
Right, right.
Otherwise, the rest of the frog will maybe confuse the symptoms or what it looks like.
Right, right. Does it not look like a grayish spot on a soybean leaf with a rim of red mascara around it?
It could also look like that.
Right.
Yeah, but I would say to start with the frog's eye. But,
right.
But yeah, like if you wanted to put it into terms that other people could, you know, like understand, maybe it would be like, yeah, like this grayish growth that's on the leaf, nice and pretty circular, but sometimes irregularly shaped, and then you know, you can imagine somebody with a paintbrush or a crayon and like a purple color, and then you sort of draw a line around it to make it sort of really stand out.
Did frog-eye leaf spot become a problem? And now I heard this in the lab one time while pipetting at the bench, that legend goes that some mad plant pathologist was out fishing and he brought along one of his pipetters by accident, and he saw a bullfrog just sunning itself looking for some delicious beetles and a place to pop out some pollywogs, and he takes the pipetter in a fit of just anger and jabs it into the frog's eye, and slip, he presses the button and the frog eye goes sloop up into the pipetter, quite unlike cutting it out with a knife. And then he holds the pipetter up to the sun and he presses it, and the eye goes slip at the end of the pipetter and flies 20 feet into a soybean field, lands on a leaf, much like your sordid story from earlier, and there's a genetic cross-pollination between the bullfrog and soybean plants, and that was the start of frog-eye leaf spot.
So I quit listening to your story because at the beginning you said like that a scientist would by accident carry a pipetter. You don't ever carry a pipetter by accident. You always have it with you.
Always ready for science at any
moment. There's no
moment.
accident there. I mean, they went out to that place for a reason.
So you're saying that all good scientists have a pipetter handy on them at all times?
Well, yeah.
Where's your pipetter?
These are details that we're not going to talk about. It's in my pocket, right here. Want to see it?
I believe you.
Okay.
What can you tell us about frog-eye resistance?
So, this fungus is not a typical fungus. It is actually a little bit smarter than us. And so, you know, we're looking at it, we're humans, we don't want to be destroyed by the Cercospora Council. And so they're doing their best to try to kill off all the soybeans, so then we don't, you know, we can't feed it to cows and we can't eat meat. And so we are trying our best to try to kill off the fungus, which we should, because we're in a battle, right? But unfortunately right now the fungus is a little smarter than us. So if we plant a certain variety, it will just, you know, it'll sacrifice some of its army and let them die off, you know, with some of our tactics. But it holds back some of the ones that can actually figure out how to get past that resistant variety. Or if we spray a fungicide to kill off the fungus, the same thing. You know, it'll figure out a way to grow, you know, whatever we throw at it, it'll figure out a way to win. So we're sort of, it's sort of a back and forth, you know. So, you know, there's who's going to win the battles or who's going to win the war. We're just sort of still up in the air. But
so you're saying that no matter how good the weapons that we use to fight against frog-eye leaf spot, there will always be some survivors on the battlefield who will reproduce and
they'll come back to their council and they'll discuss the strategies, what they learned in the battles, and they'll come back with a different strategy the next time. Yeah, yeah.
Well, we heard you allude to some management tactics in your last little diatribe there. What is the best way to manage frog-eye leaf spot?
If you're a soybean farmer, you'd want to get into your catalog and find one that is has some resistance to the fungus, and so you should be able to start with that. Right. And that's a first good wave. But you know, there's a second wave, and if they're smart enough to get past that, is to spray a fungicide, and we have some of those out there. If you wanted a list real quickly, Crop Protection Network, it's something that's called the Internet. It's a page on the Internet. You can go to there, and they have a nice list of the fungicides that would work the best.
Right, the Internet's a network of wires with running up to the moon and back.
Yeah, yeah, that same one. Yeah, and so the Crop Protection Network reserved a page on that wire network out there, and so you can go there and see the list of the fungicides that would work the best. So resistant varieties, fungicides that are effective. Some of them don't work, so you have to really be careful. I tell you, the universities within each state have done a good job of putting generals out there that are on the lookout for these rogue fungi that are trying to kill us off.
AKA extension
specialists, yeah, extension plant pathologists, and so I would say they're the ones that are sort of leading the charge. And so use that Google machine to just type in extension plant pathologist in whatever state you're in, and there should be somebody there that has some good answers for you.
If soybeans are capable of getting frogeye leaf spot, can frogs get soybean eye spot?
I mean, I could make up an answer. I don't study frog diseases.
Right, so one's unaware of that.
Right, I'm not entirely sure, but I mean, you can connect the dots pretty easily. I mean, it seems logical. Yes. So that's how science works.
Yes, right. Indeed.
Yeah.
You know, this reminds me of days past in university that I spent touring with a local polka band. Oh, the crowds, the ruckus and frenzied fans all vying for front row seats. The shredded vocal cords, the simmering stage lights causing sweat to run into my eyes. The smooth keys of the accordion beneath my nimble fingers, the sold-out shows, the obsessed fan who tried to cut off my ear at our last show in Lancashire. Is that what it feels like to be an extension plant pathologist, Dr. Mueller?
I would say, I mean, you do have a following. Right. I mean, it just puts you in a position of fame and fortune, and some of us know how to handle it a little bit better than others, and it's a lot of pressure though. And so just having that many fans and trying to be true to them, trying to let that not affect you and sort of who you truly are, it's tough, but it's pretty accurate.
Right. You must not let your raving fans bias your science.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the goals of extension is to not be biased. Right. And so, man, but when that, when the fans are there and they really want something, it's tough.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Dr. Mueller, thank you for your energetic and articulate discussion today on the topic of frogeye leaf spot of soybean. All of you plucky learners out there can walk away from this conversation with your brains expanded, your IQ increased, and your funny bone tickled. Thank you, Dr. Mueller.
Thank you for the opportunity. Pleasure.
I'm Sebastian Eugene Bartholomew, and this is The Undergrowth.
I am up to 3 fans, maybe 6, but it might be just my children.
It's like 300% more than I.
Well, it's a start.
What are you doing with the book? Do that one. It's upside down.